I've always hated how people romanticize family. They say blood is thicker than water, that no matter what happens, family is supposed to stick together. But for people like me, who were born into homes where love had conditions and favoritism was worn like a badge of honor, those words don't bring comfort, they sting. My name is Ethan. I'm 32 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've played the role of the lesser son, the invisible one, the mistake they never admitted to. Growing up, it was clear who the favorite was, my younger brother, Mike. He's 29 now, but even when we were kids, he could do no wrong. If he broke a window, I got grounded for not watching him. If we both got straight A's, he was rewarded with a new video game console, while I got a pat on the back and a reminder to keep it up. It wasn't sibling rivalry, it was emotional warfare, disguised as parenting. I remember one Thanksgiving when I was 13. I had just won a regional math competition, beating out kids from private schools across the county. I came home with a medal and a certificate, eager to show my parents. That same day, Mike got a C+ on a science quiz. While I stood in the hallway holding my award, I listened as my mom consoled him. "It's okay, sweetheart. You tried your best." My medal sat untouched on the kitchen counter until I finally threw it in a drawer. That was the first time I felt truly erased. It only got worse from there. In high school, I worked part-time to help pay for my own clothes and saved up for college. I rode my bike 5 miles each way to work, rain or shine. When I was accepted to a solid university with a partial scholarship, my parents barely reacted. My mom said, "Well, don't get cocky," and my dad muttered something about student debt. Meanwhile, when Mike got accepted into a local community college, they threw him a backyard party with balloons and a catered BBQ. A week later, they bought him a used car. Nothing fancy, just a 2006 Toyota. But still, it was more than I ever got. Mike dropped out one semester later. They called it soul-searching. They always had an excuse ready for him. He's younger. He's sensitive. He needs more guidance. They said I was the older brother. I should know better. I should be the one to let things go. Let it go when he crashed my bike and blamed it on me. Let it go when he got drunk and trashed our basement during my high school graduation weekend. Let it go when he stole my college laptop to pawn it and borrowed cash I had saved for rent. So I let it go, again and again, until I couldn't anymore. By the time I was 25, I had already moved out, working full-time while paying off student loans and building a life of my own. Mike still lived at home, bouncing between dead-end projects and failed business ideas that my parents endlessly funded. To them, he was just trying to find himself. To me, he was the wrecking ball that kept smashing everything I tried to build. Still, despite everything, I kept showing up. I told myself, "He's your brother, your family, don't burn the bridge." I went to every awkward Christmas dinner, every lopsided birthday party where I got a gift card and Mike got applause, but nothing could prepare me for what was coming. Nothing could prepare me for the moment when the brother who had taken everything would take the one person I thought was mine. The weeks following our engagement were a blur of Pinterest boards, budget spreadsheets, and late-night talks about our future. Sarah and I were in sync, at least I thought we were. We agreed on a long engagement so we could save up, maybe buy a starter home. We both worked full-time, and though life was hectic, it felt full, real. I genuinely believed I had finally outrun the shadow of my family, but something began to shift. At first it was subtle. Sarah seemed distracted. She was on her phone constantly, texting and smiling to herself. When I'd ask, she'd brush it off. "Just work stuff," she'd say. Or, "Mia from accounting sent me a meme." I didn't push, I trusted her. After everything I'd endured growing up, the last thing I wanted to be was controlling, so I let it go. Then came the nights out, more of them. Drinks with friends I'd never met. Networking events that seemed more like excuses to avoid me. She'd come home smelling like wine, and something else, a cologne I didn't recognize, a scent that didn't belong to us. Still, I didn't question her. Maybe I should have. But love makes you blind, and after spending most of my life being told I wasn't good enough, having someone like Sarah love me felt like a miracle I didn't want to lose. And then came the day she told me she was pregnant. She sat across from me at our kitchen table, trembling. I remember the clock ticking louder than usual, my hands wrapped around a coffee mug I never drank from. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. For a moment, my world lit up. I imagined a nursery, midnight feedings, little league. I didn't care that we hadn't planned it. I was ready. I was excited. Until she added 3 words that shattered everything. It's not yours. I didn't understand at first. I thought I'd misheard her. But the way she broke down, the way her hands covered her face in shame, told me everything. I asked who. She hesitated, and then she said it. Mike, my brother, my younger brother. I felt the blood drain from my body. My breath caught in my throat. My heart? It didn't break. It imploded. The silence between us stretched on forever before I could even react. My mind spiraled through every memory. Mike asking about Sarah, laughing at my engagement, showing up uninvited to our get-togethers, always lurking, always watching. I couldn't even cry. The betrayal ran so deep it numbed me. Sarah tried to explain. It started at our engagement party. He told me I was making a mistake, that I could do better. Her words twisted in my stomach. It wasn't supposed to happen, she sobbed. I never meant to fall for him. But she had, and it wasn't a one-time thing. It had been months, lies stacked on lies, nights I thought she was working late. She was with him, with my brother, my own flesh and blood. I told her to leave. No yelling, no throwing things. I just stood up, opened the door, and told her to go. She begged me to talk, to forgive, but all I could do was stare through her at the life we were supposed to have, at the future she'd burned down without a second thought. When she finally walked out, something inside me broke, and I knew I wasn't just losing my fiancé. I was losing my family all over again. I barely remember the drive to Mike's apartment. I just remember the cold, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes you feel hollow. My hands were shaking the entire way, not from the freezing air, but from the storm raging inside me. I had no plan, no words. I just knew I needed to see him, to look into the eyes of the person who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. When I pulled into the parking lot, my phone buzzed. It was my mom, then my dad, then Mike. He beat me to the punch, literally. He had called them first, spinning the story before I could even get a word out. I didn't know what he told them, but when I walked up to his door and saw my parents standing there, I knew whose side they were already on. My mother's eyes welled up with tears, not for me, but for Mike. "We need to talk," she said, like I'd done something wrong. My dad just stood there with that familiar look of disappointment etched across his face. The same one he wore when I didn't make the soccer team in high school, or when I chose to major in something unimpressive like communications. Never mind that I paid my way through school while Mike floundered through life with their constant support. Mike opened the door. His face was blank, like this wasn't even a big deal. Like he just borrowed a jacket without asking, not my future. "It wasn't serious," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Just a mistake." I stared at him in disbelief. "You slept with my fiancé." He shrugged. Maybe if you'd been more present, she wouldn't have looked elsewhere. It was like someone poured gasoline on my grief and lit a match. Before I could respond, my mother jumped in, her voice trembling. "He's your brother. He made a mistake, but he's sorry." "Sorry?" I snapped. "You think this is something an apology can fix?" She took a step closer. "Family is family. You'll understand when the baby comes. You can't just cut him out." The word baby was a slap to the face. They weren't asking me to heal. They were asking me to pretend it never happened, to show up at holidays and coo over a child that was living proof of the ultimate betrayal. My father finally spoke, arms still crossed. "You're being dramatic. You need to grow up. People move on." Move on? From my fiancé carrying my brother's child? I felt something inside me snap. The dam I'd built over decades of being overlooked, dismissed, and second-guessed finally burst. I looked at all 3 of them, the people who were supposed to protect me, and said, "You want Mike? You can have him, but you don't get me anymore." Their faces fell, but I didn't wait for a response. I turned around and walked away. I drove for hours that night, no destination in mind, just the open road and the hum of the engine. At some point, I pulled over, parked near an empty field, and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. I had lost everything, not just Sarah, but the illusion that my family would ever have my back. They had picked their golden boy, again, and I was left in the cold, carrying the weight of a betrayal I didn't deserve. And still, somehow, they expected me to forgive. But forgiveness isn't something you demand, it's something you earn. And they had never even tried. The days after that night blurred into a fog of grief, rage, and exhaustion. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I couldn't go to work. I sat in my apartment like a ghost of myself, surrounded by half-packed boxes of wedding decorations we'd never use, and photos I couldn't bring myself to take down. Sarah called constantly. I didn't answer. Then she texted. Long, rambling messages filled with apologies and rationalizations. How it had just happened. How Mike understood her in a way I didn't. How she still loved me, but the connection with him had grown too strong to ignore. I felt sick every time her name lit up my phone. Worse were the messages from my parents. Not one said, "I'm sorry." Not one said, "We were wrong." Instead, they said things like, "You're tearing this family apart. You're being petty, a child is on the way. Forgiveness is part of being a man." Being a man? I had supported myself since college. I had never once asked them for a dime. I worked hard, built a steady life, and asked for nothing but respect. Meanwhile, Mike coasted through failures, handed excuse after excuse, and now, after burning down what was left of our relationship, I was expected to rebuild it. For what? To play pretend at the next family gathering while Mike and Sarah passed around a baby that should have been mine? I blocked Sarah's number, then Mike's, then both my parents. I changed my phone number, shut down all social media, and moved to a new apartment across town, somewhere quieter, anonymous. But the damage didn't stop there. They began showing up, at my job, outside my new apartment, at my gym. My mother once cornered me in the parking lot crying, saying I was breaking her heart. My father left a voicemail, low and gruff, accusing me of abandoning my blood. And Mike? Mike had the audacity to send me a message saying, "Let's not make this weird. We're going to be co-parents. Sarah and I hope you'll be part of our child's life." I nearly threw my phone across the room. They had torched my life, and now they wanted me to be the supportive brother? The doting uncle? It was around that time I began therapy. I'd never been to one before, always thought I could carry my own pain, tough it out. But I couldn't anymore. The betrayal ran too deep. It wasn't just Sarah. It wasn't just Mike. It was a lifetime of being invisible to the people who should have seen me most. My therapist helped me name it. Emotional neglect, family scapegoating, generational gaslighting, words I'd heard before but never dared apply to my own life. She didn't tell me to forgive. She told me to grieve, to protect myself. And for the first time, I realized cutting them off wasn't cruelty. It was survival. Still, I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. I saw a baby stroller the other day in a store window and nearly broke down. That could have been mine. That should have been mine. But instead, I was starting over. Alone. And strangely, for the first time in a long time, that felt okay. A month after I moved, just when I thought I had finally carved out a space for peace, the past came pounding on my door, this time in the form of an envelope. No sender listed, just my name scribbled across the front. I almost tossed it without opening, but curiosity won. Inside was an ultrasound photo and a handwritten note. It was from Sarah. She wrote that she and Mike were thrilled to become parents and hoped I would one day find it in my heart to be happy for them. She said the baby would be lucky to have an uncle like me, and that she still hoped we could all be a family again someday. I stared at the blurry grayscale image of a child that should have been mine, and felt nothing but cold. It wasn't anger this time. It wasn't even sadness. It was a terrifying kind of emptiness. I unblocked her number, dialed it, and waited. She answered with a soft, "Hello," like we were old friends, and I let go. Everything I'd bottled up, everything I'd swallowed, every scream I'd shoved into the corners of my chest. I told her, flat out, what I thought of her, Mike, and the fantasy life they'd created on the grave of mine. I told her she was delusional if she thought I'd ever want to see that child, their child, and when I hung up, I didn't feel regret. I felt free. That night, I emailed my manager. I told him I wanted the transfer to Seattle. I was done with this city, this zip code, this entire chapter of my life. He replied within hours, saying he'd expedite the process. A week later, it was official. I had 2 weeks to pack and leave everything behind, but my family wasn't done. They showed up at my apartment again, violating the restraining order I had in place. My mother sobbed on the sidewalk, pleading that I was destroying the family. My father barked about loyalty and not turning your back on blood. I didn't say a word. I called the police. As they were led away, my mother screamed, "You'll regret this. We're still your family." But in my heart, I knew that wasn't true. They made their choice the day they believed Mike, the day they looked into my face and saw inconvenience instead of truth. That same night, Mike posted a long message on social media about rising above hate and building a new family from broken pieces. He painted himself as the victim, a misunderstood man trying to do the right thing. It made me sick. Sarah predictably followed with her own post, baby bump photo and all, talking about blessings and forgiveness. "We all make mistakes, she wrote, but love is bigger than pride." What they never understood, what they still didn't understand, is that I wasn't holding on to pride. I was holding on to myself. Amy, my cousin, helped me pack. She told me the family was split. Some believed me, some didn't. But one thing was clear: nobody was willing to hold Mike or Sarah accountable. Not really, and that was all I needed to hear. The night before my flight to Seattle, I sat on the floor of my half-empty apartment, sipping a glass of red wine I'd been saving. The lights of the city glittered through the window. My past was boxed up around me. My future waited 3,000 miles away. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the broken one. I felt whole, not because they apologized, not because I forgave them, but because I finally chose me. Seattle welcomed me with gray skies and a chill that bit through my jacket as I stepped off the plane. But I didn't care. I wasn't here for the weather. I was here for peace, for distance, for a life untouched by betrayal. My new apartment was small but bright, nestled in a quiet corner of Capitol Hill. I could hear the faint hum of city life from my window, the clang of light rail in the distance, the buzz of coffee shops coming alive before dawn. I didn't know anyone, and that was the point. For the first time in years, no one here knew me as the guy whose brother stole his fiancée. I was just me. Work was a godsend. The team at the Seattle office was sharp, fast-paced, and completely unaware of the chaos I had left behind. I buried myself in projects, worked late, volunteered for everything. I needed the distraction, needed to feel useful, needed to believe I still had control over something. But the past doesn't just vanish, not when it's been carved into you. On my third night, as I unpacked the last of my boxes, I found the envelope Sarah had sent. The ultrasound photo. I didn't know why I kept it. Maybe part of me wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't afraid to look at it, but as I stared down at the blurry outline of a child that should have been mine, I felt my chest tighten. I tore it in half and dropped it into the trash, not out of hate, but because I couldn't let that image define me anymore. A few days later, I received a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my dad. His voice cracked more than I ever remembered. "We just wanted to hear your voice, son. Your mother isn't doing well. She talks about you every day." He paused. "We miss you. Please call back." I didn't. Instead, I sat on my balcony, watching the lights flicker across Puget Sound. I thought about my childhood, about all the times I'd craved a message like that, a simple, "We miss you." And now, when it finally came, it felt too late. I wasn't trying to punish them. I just didn't trust them anymore. Sarah hadn't reached out again since I called her out. According to Emma, her sister Sarah and Mike had moved into a townhouse in the suburbs. She still posted baby updates online, bump photos, nursery plans, soft pastel captions like "blessed beyond measure." Emma sent me screenshots occasionally, unsure if I wanted them. I didn't, but I always looked anyway. I suppose part of healing is knowing exactly what you're choosing to walk away from. And I was walking away, not because I was weak, but because I was tired of fighting for space in a family that never saw me. Amy, my cousin, called to check in. "You sound different," she said, "lighter." Maybe I was. Maybe Seattle wasn't just a new place, it was a rebirth. I started going for long walks in Volunteer Park, just me and my thoughts. I saw a therapist weekly, and for the first time in my life, I was learning to speak about the pain without apologizing for it. We talked about identity, about betrayal, about the tangled mess of loving people who hurt you. I cried more in those first few sessions than I had in years, but I also laughed, because slowly, I was reclaiming my life. Not the life my parents wanted, not the life I lost with Sarah, but the one I was building with my own two hands, and that, more than anything, was mine. It was a rainy Thursday in Seattle when everything started unraveling. Again, I had just come home from work, drenched from a surprise downpour, clutching a takeout bag and hoping for nothing more than a quiet night. My apartment, small but warm, had become my sanctuary. I had started sleeping better, breathing easier. The past still lingered, sure, but it wasn't suffocating me like before. That peace shattered the moment I saw the envelope taped to my door. No return address. Just my name, written in shaky handwriting I hadn't seen in years. My mother's. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a letter, trembling with desperation and guilt. She wrote about how much they missed me, about how the baby, Mike and Sarah's child, had been born. A boy. His name was Benjamin. She wrote that she hoped the baby would bring healing, that seeing him might change everything. And then came the line that made my stomach twist. "He looks just like you did when you were born." I sank to the floor. It was cruel, not because of what she meant, but because she didn't see how deeply that would cut. This baby wasn't mine. He was the physical embodiment of betrayal, of everything I'd lost, and yet she was using my childhood, my image, as bait for forgiveness. 2 days later, they showed up, uninvited, in Seattle. I was walking up the steps to my building when I saw them standing by the entrance. My parents, with umbrellas, and behind them, Mike, holding a carrier. I froze. It felt like the air had been vacuumed out of my lungs. My father was the first to speak. "We just wanted you to meet your nephew." My mother was already crying. "Please, just one moment. You don't even have to say anything." And Mike? He couldn't even meet my eyes. I looked at them, soaking wet and clinging to this newborn peace offering, as if it would undo everything. And in that moment, something clicked. This wasn't about love. This was about control. They didn't come here to apologize. They came to fix their guilt with a photo op. I took a breath, the same breath I'd learned to take in therapy when the pain started bubbling up. "I'm not interested," I said quietly. My mom whimpered. "But he's your family." "No," I cut in. "He's your family. You chose him. You chose Mike. You chose Sarah. And you chose to erase me." My dad stepped forward. "He's innocent, you know. The baby. Don't punish him." I clenched my jaw. "I'm not punishing him. I'm protecting me." Mike finally looked up. His eyes were tired, hollow. Maybe fatherhood was hitting him harder than he expected. "I never meant for it to happen like this," he said. I laughed bitterly. "No one ever means to destroy someone's life, but you did. And now you want me to pretend it didn't happen? Hold your baby and act like I wasn't shattered?" None of them answered. I walked past them, key in hand. My mother sobbed. My father stared at the sidewalk. And Mike? He just held the baby, still silent. When I reached the door, I turned around one last time. "Please don't come here again. If you do, I'll call the police. I mean it." Then I shut the door behind me and locked it. I leaned against the frame, heart pounding, and slid down to the floor. And I cried, not because I wanted them back, but because part of me wished they had come with real remorse. Real healing, not just a baby and hope that I'd forget. They left town that night. I know because Amy texted me, furious that they'd ambushed me like that. She said even Emma was horrified, calling it manipulative and cruel. I didn't answer right away. I just sat in the silence of my apartment, the storm still rattling outside. But inside? I finally felt calm. They brought chaos back into my life, but I didn't let it in. I chose peace. And this time, I meant it. It's been 3 weeks since they showed up at my door. 3 weeks since I stood in the rain and told my parents, my brother, and the mother of what could have been my child to leave me alone. Since then, not a word. No surprise visits, no letters, no baby pictures taped to my door, just silence. And for the first time in what feels like forever, I'm starting to understand what peace really means. My days now are slow but intentional. I wake up early, drink my coffee while watching the fog roll over the Seattle skyline, and remind myself, you're here, you made it through. There are still nights I wake up in a cold sweat, the echoes of betrayal playing like a broken record in my head. But they're fading, bit by bit. One thing that's helped? Therapy. Every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m., I sit across from a woman named Carla, who doesn't flinch when I tell her how I wanted to destroy everything just to feel something, who nods without judgment when I admit that sometimes I miss the idea of my family, even if the reality of them has always been damaging. Carla helped me realize something I couldn't see before. I've spent most of my life trying to be chosen, trying to earn love I should have never had to beg for, and that's not my burden to carry anymore. I recently bought a plant, nothing big, just a small fiddle leaf fig for my kitchen window. I named him Leo. It might sound silly, but watering Leo every morning has become a ritual, a symbol of life continuing, of growth even when the roots were damaged. Last weekend, I visited the ocean. I drove 2 hours to the Washington coast, parked on a quiet stretch of beach, and just breathed. No texts, no emails, no drama. Just me, the salt air, and the steady crash of waves reminding me that everything passes eventually. And while I sat there, I forgave myself. Not them. Me. I forgave myself for not seeing the signs, for trusting people who didn't deserve it, for hoping too long and holding on too tight. I forgave myself for the anger, the bitterness, the nights I screamed into my pillow until I couldn't speak. I let it go. Because the truth is, letting go doesn't mean losing. It means choosing yourself, maybe for the first time ever. I'm not saying I'm healed. Healing isn't a finish line you cross, it's a decision you make every day. But I'm walking toward it now, slowly, steadily. I've even started going out again. Nothing wild, just dinner with coworkers, a movie with a new friend from my building, a hike up Mount C with a neighbor who, like me, came to Seattle to start over. For the first time, I'm not defining myself by what happened. I'm not the man whose brother stole his fiancée. I'm just Elliot, a guy who's learning how to live again. Amy and Emma still check in. We send each other dumb memes and random photos from our days. They're the only ones from that old world I've let stay, and they've respected every boundary I've set. As for Sarah and Mike, I haven't heard a word. And I don't want to. I wish their child no harm. I hope he grows up kind and safe. But I won't be in his life. I won't be the shadow uncle, the family scapegoat who plays pretend at Christmas while swallowing pain. That chapter's closed. Seattle feels more like home every day. I'm looking at places to buy, something permanent, something mine. I've even started writing again, a habit I abandoned years ago when the noise of trying to be enough drowned out my voice. But it's back now. Quiet, steady, honest, just like me. One of the hardest lessons life can teach us is that not everyone who shares your blood deserves a place in your future. Elliot's story is raw, painful, and all too familiar for those who've experienced betrayal by the very people who were supposed to protect them. He didn't just lose a fiancé. He lost trust, stability, and the foundation of what he believed family was meant to be. But what he found in that loss was something far more powerful: himself. Elliot's journey reminds us that setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's necessary. It's not heartless to say no more to the people who continuously hurt you. In fact, that's where real healing begins. Forgiveness is often painted as the mature route, but true maturity is understanding that forgiveness doesn't mean allowing toxic people back into your life. Sometimes forgiveness is quiet. It's choosing not to carry their damage forward. It's building a new life, brick by brick, in a city where no one calls you the villain for choosing yourself. His story also sheds light on the impact of long-term family favoritism and emotional neglect. Many people are told to get over it, but when you grow up invisible or constantly second to a golden child, that pain doesn't just disappear, it echoes. And when that sibling crosses the ultimate line, like Mike did, it shatters everything. But from that shattered space, Elliot found freedom. So if you've ever felt like the overlooked one, the expendable one, or the one who always had to be the bigger person, this story is for you. You're not alone. And more importantly, you have every right to walk away from what hurts, even if it shares your last name. Because peace isn't found in keeping the family together. It's found in choosing the family you deserve. If this story moved you, resonated with your own experiences, or gave you a moment of clarity, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We bring real, powerful stories like this every week, stories that help people heal, reflect, and grow. Turn on notifications so you never miss another moment of truth.